Hi, and welcome. We're so glad you've joined us for this brief time together. We are wanting to explain in this short time the purpose for changing our accreditation lists. We have previously on our Baptist Union ministry list had the fully accredited list, the probationer list, the student list, and that's it. We have realized that this doesn't always fit our present situation. Times change, situations change. And so we are introducing some new lists, and if you listen carefully, I'm sure they'll make very good sense to you. And at the assembly, because this was tabled at last year's assembly, at this year's assembly it will be presented for approval. So we are hoping that this will save time at the assembly to explain everything. And if you have further questions, you need to just get hold of the Baptist Union office. But firstly, let me answer the question about what are the ministry lists as we now are proposing them to be. Firstly, the fully accredited list has been divided into two lists. There's the fully accredited pastoral leaders in current pastoral ministry. That is those who are serving in a local church. There are those who are chaplains, as in the Defence Force. There are those who are teaching in theological seminaries, and then there are the retired pastors. Now, they will be on their fully accredited pastoral leaders in current pastoral ministry, and it includes not only senior pastors, but all those in pastoral office in a church, youth pastor, counseling pastor, whatever. There's a variety of pastors in pastoral ministry in the local church. The second list for the fully accredited are those pastoral leaders in current ministry, but not in a local church. Those are people such as missionaries, those in parachurch organizations, and those in some kind of community development, community upliftment organizations where they are performing a spiritual function. And these lists, we have divided them just for clarity, because there are some pastors on our list who came into the seminary and came onto the list not because they wanted to go into the local church pastoral ministry, but they wanted to be missionaries. They are in parachurch organizations and so on. And now we'll be able to know who is serving in what area. And then the third category is the probationary pastoral leaders currently serving in a local church of a recognized ministry or in a ministry outside of the Baptist Union. And this is the same as it always was, the probationer list, where people are there for 2 years, they have less than 24 months experience, they have a supervisor or a ministerial advisor that helps them, and after 2 years, provided they get a very good report from their ministerial advisor, are moved up to one of those accredited lists. And then there is a new category, which we have called the provisional pastors, who are in a called pastoral position, who are studying still at a recognized institution towards recognition for ministry. Now, this has been brought in because there are those churches who have called a pastor who is not yet completed their theological training to a satisfactory degree, but they are called pastors of the local church. And in many instances, the church's constitution says they have to have a fully accredited or an accredited pastor on our Baptist Union ministry list. And because the local church is the core of our denomination, we don't want to go against the local church, and so we've added this category. But there is the proviso that these pastors must be studying at a recognized institution, and they are given 3 years to complete their their theological education in a satisfactory way. And they need to show evidence that every year they are actually studying towards this. If after 3 years they have not completed their lists, their studies, then there is the possibility that they will be taken off that list, or if there is some compelling reason, of course, why they haven't completed the studies, obviously the ministry board is understanding. However, we want to encourage people to make sure they are working towards fully accredited status, and they're given 3 years to do this. And then the fifth category is also a new introduction. We have found that many of our churches are led by lay leaders who are untrained, but they do a good job. And we want to upskill them, and we want to have some kind of accountability so that we can come alongside and encourage them. And so we have this category: lay pastoral leaders, evangelists, and pastoral candidates with inadequate theological education. There is going to be a basic academic training that is needed as their qualification, and that will be the Pulse course from the Cape Town Baptist Seminary, or the higher certificate of theology from the Baptist Theological College. And obviously a ministry board interview would also be a requirement. This list is not to be seen as an accredited list of the Baptist Union. In other words, these people on this list would not be able to be called as the full-time pastor of a church that has in their constitution that their pastor must be on the accredited list of the Baptist Union. This is a list for lay pastoral leaders so that we can come alongside them, support them, help them, upskill them, and so on. And then, just to say, we have also done some work on the whole question of how are pastors removed from the list. You know, there may be disciplinary procedures, and every year you might hear at the assembly that a certain pastor has had their name taken off the list for misconduct or something. And we have been trying to define exactly what misconduct is that disqualifies one of us from being the called pastor of a church on our accredited list. And it's been a bit of a grey area, and we're trying to tighten it up. So that will also be presented to you at the assembly. I trust that that has helped you in the understanding our new list. The 2 fully accredited lists, the probationer list, the provisional pastors list that really replaces the old student list, and then the lay leaders list. Concerning candidates, those who have completed their theological education adequately and have been accepted by an interview with the NLC, then they have their names put on the candidates list. This is not an accredited list. It's those who we recommend for ministry, and they are awaiting a call. And as at present, those names will be there for 3 years, and then they are automatically removed. However, if for some compelling reason, again, that person wants to remain on the list, they just need to communicate with the ministry board and tell us. The onus will be on them to say, please, I'm looking for a church or whatever, and in the process, can I stay on the candidates list for another year or whatever. If they don't communicate with us, then automatically their name does just fall off that candidate list. I hope that does make things clearer. But the question comes, the new requirements for the fully accredited list and the probation list. What are they? And Piff, you are able to answer that, being our resident theological expert.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, it's not new, but all our ministers have to be accredited, fully accredited, in a theological way. And this is what we are saying, is that our pastors are to have a 4-year qualification, and that means a 480 credit degree in theology. That degree is also called an NQF 8 level qualification. The abbreviation NQF means National Qualification Framework, and it's a level 8, and a level 8 is generally taken as an honors degree. And so all our pastors who wants to be on the fully accredited list and the down to the probation list will be required to have a 4-year qualification, 480 credits, or NQF level 8 qualification. Now, these qualifications, though they might be NQF level 8 or 480 credits, has to be in some way conforming to our Baptist Union College's curriculum. So that means either the BTC or the CTBS curriculum must be the standard at which those studies are done. Now, to give you an example, what I mean is that there are candidates who came in from other institutions, and they are generally sent to us by the ministry board, and we are to look at what credits they have and whether that is sufficient according to what we Baptists require. And we have discovered that many times people come from other institutions with a full 480 credit or NQF level 8 qualification, but they haven't done systematic theology or enough systematic theology. They haven't done enough biblical studies, and these are the kind of things that we are looking for, including the Baptist principles, ethos, and history courses. And so then we will look at your transcript if you come from another institution, and we will be able to tell you what courses you still have to do in order to come to the fully accredited list. And so such candidates with a qualification from another institution has to apply with their transcripts so that we can see what courses they have done. That is for towards the fully accredited list. Then Peter mentioned to you the lay leaders list and what is required for that list to be accredited at that level, and that is that you have to do either the CTBS Pulse course or you've got to do the BTH or BTC's HCT, Higher Certificate of Theology course. And so you can then judge and select whichever one you want to do. So those are the qualifications that are required for accredited ministry within the Baptist Union. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Piff. That's very helpful. And I would just like to add and remind people on our requirements to come onto the list. On all of those lists is that there has to be the agreement to abide by the Code of Ethics, which all our pastors will sign. And then something new that is added is that we are asking all candidates and applicants to get a police clearance certificate. Now, some people smile at that, and I want to say that this is not going to exclude those who perhaps have a criminal record because in their pre-Christian days they lived a wild life and ended up in prison. This certificate must clear the applicant from sexual offences, paedophilia, abuse, and gender-based violence. We know that this has become a very topical point, and many churches have had to face the issue of abuse by their pastoral leaders on vulnerable members of the congregation. And so this is a very important step that we are taking. Should we not do that, we could be in trouble if we allow someone who perhaps has a record of this kind of abuse and we allow them into a church. We need to, in some way, guard our churches from any potential abuse. We are also encouraging churches, because this will be done once at the beginning when a candidate applies for ministry. And once they're on the list, obviously, we as the ministry board won't be asking for a further clearance certificate, but we do encourage churches when they are looking for a pastor and they employ someone new to actually get an updated police clearance certificate clearing them from this kind of abusive behavior. So that is a new requirement there. Then the next question is this. Those who have completed their theological studies and have been successively interviewed but still awaiting a call will have the names kept on a list of candidates awaiting a call. And we mentioned that a little bit earlier. And I just want to remind you that if you are a candidate on the list, you're there for 3 years. And should you want to stay on beyond that 3 years, you must contact the ministry board of the Baptist Union. And we've dealt with that question. But Colin, there is one important question I would like to ask you, and that is, will these rules be enforced? That's the law of the Medes and Persians, no change.
Look, I've had the privilege of looking after the ministry list the last couple of years. And a lot of younger pastors don't see the importance of this list sometimes. It's underestimated. The Baptist Union does set a very high standard for our pastors to come onto ministry accreditation. And we must be aware that's there for a very good reason. It's come out of decades of experience. It hasn't just evolved overnight. And so what Prof. Piff has mentioned about the studies and what you've mentioned about the maturity of the candidates coming to those lists, that's very, very important to us, because we want to offer our churches the best possible candidates to choose from when they call a pastor. And that standard has to be the same for everyone. It has to be a just standard, a standard that is good and achievable, but also the same for everyone. It is not a list just to get onto for the sake of a list. And we just need to reiterate that, and that's very important. And it is something that the Baptist Union holds in high regard, and we will not lower our standards just to get someone on the list who wants to become part of the Baptist Union. They have to work towards getting onto that list, and it takes work.
It certainly does. Thank you. And I just want to remind you again that at the Assembly, the new list structure will be presented for voting and approval. So please do take time to understand it all and come with questions, come with suggestions. But I want to also just say, you may be asking, what has happened about our program for continuous development of our pastors? We're not going to present anything new at this assembly. Last year we presented a suggestion and we learned from the feedback. It was very good, the little bit of feedback we had. We've taken that into account and we will be working on it, bringing something to the 2023 assembly. And that is going to be very important, because we don't want the situation where our pastors are on a list for life, but there is no accountability. we want to encourage all of us to keep growing, to keep improving, to keep up to date. Times change, situations change, counseling issues change. I mean, who knew 10 years ago even we would be talking about some of the issues that we have today on, for example, LGBTQT, whatever. You know, we've got these things that are new to most of us. And we've got to know how to minister to people today. We've got different poverty issues. We've got different race issues. We've got all kinds of things. And we need to keep growing, keep learning. Theological discussion changes. And so we are going to be bringing in 2023 a new program for pastoral development. So thank you for listening. Colin and Piff, thank you for your thoughts. I don't know if you have anything new, a final thought to say?
I just thank you for the time that you guys have spent as a pastoral support team over the past few years in developing this program to where it is now in this department. And we just hope that it will become the blessing to the union that it is envisaged to be.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, we would like to encourage churches to encourage their possible students to consider BTC and CTBS rather than another institution.
Thank you, Piv. I think that is a very important thing, because I know of many students who went to other institutions thinking they would be able to walk straight into a Baptist church, and they were never informed that they would have to do a year or even 2 years further study. And so we say to the pastors that are listening who have potential students, make them aware of what they need to be Baptist pastors. And if they go to another institution, they need to be able to ask for what they will be studying and send it to either Prof. Piff or Prof. Godfrey at Cape Town, and they will be able to tell you, look, if you go through this seminary, you are going to have to do X, Y, and Z, and it'll take you 1 year, 2 year, whatever, to become an accredited Baptist pastor. So they are aware at the beginning of their studies.
Can I say this, perhaps, in the light of that, is that if you go to another institution, you may get a full qualification. Yes, you can then do the extra courses that will comply with Baptist requirements, but you will not get a qualification for that. However, if you want a Baptist qualification from BTC or CTBS, then you will only be given maximum half of the credits that you had already accumulated elsewhere.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting. Thank you. Yeah. So there are these things to take into account. It's not saying that the other institution are inferior in any way. They're just not Baptist. And we are a Baptist denomination, and there have been difficulties that I have been involved with, where there was a pastor who became a Baptist pastor, but he didn't have a Baptist background and the Baptist ethos. And so handling congregational government was something foreign to them. Although they believed in it in principle, it was foreign to them. And so it is something that we want to avoid, the potential conflicts down the road. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and the Lord bless you and encourage you, and I trust that our coming assembly will be a great blessing to everybody. Colin, thank you for your work you're doing there, and Piff, thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Good. Goodbye.